Good day all and welcome once again to my channel. This time we are going to be having a biology video lesson on the topic sense organs. Now when we talk about sense organs, let's break it down. Now looking at organs, organs are simply a collection of different tissues to perform a given function. Now a collection of cells to perform a given function is called tissues. Then while a collection of tissues to perform a given function is called organs. And when we say sense organs, we are referring to organs that respond to external stimuli. All right. External stimuli can come in the form of touch, it can come in the form of pressure, it can come in the form of pain, it can come in the form of vision changes, it can come in the form of taste changes, it can come in the form of smell changes, it can come in the form of hearing, even feeling. All right. So these are actually different stimuli that our sense organs they respond to. All right. And these sense organs, they are actually made up of sensory cells or sensory receptors. These sensory receptors, what they do is this. The moment the sense organs have already picked up the stimuli, what happens? The sensory receptors would convert the stimuli to electrical impulses, and after that it will now be transported or taken to the brain for interpretation. All right. And if we should look at the different groups of the sensory receptors, there are about four main groups. And what are the four main groups of sensory receptors? We have the mechanoreceptors, the mechanoreceptors, we have the chemoreceptors, chemoreceptors, we have the photoreceptors, photoreceptors, and we have the thermoreceptors. All right. So these are the different groups of receptors. Now, for mechanoreceptors, they are involved in sensing changes in pressure and touch, pressure and touch. Then while chemoreceptors, they are involved in sensing changes in chemicals, and these chemicals can come in the form of smells and taste. All right. Then for photoreceptors, these ones they sense changes in light, because from the word photo, photo means light. Then while thermoreceptors they sense changes to temperature, and of course it could be hotness or coldness, that is temperature. All right. So these are the four basic groups of our sensory receptors. So what we are going to be focusing on would be on a particular sense organ. We have about five sense organs in the human body. And what are they? We have the skin, we have the nose, we have the ears, we have the eyes, and we have the tongue. So these are the five sense organs that we have in the human body. All right. So what we are about looking at is to focus on one of the sense organs, which happens to be the skin. All right. So let's focus on the skin. Focusing on the skin, which is one of the five sense organs that we have in the body. Now, the skin is considered to be the largest organ of the human body. All right. And considering the skin, we have about three layers of the skin. And what are the three layers? We have the epidermis, which is seen to be the outer layer. All right. And then we have the dermis, which is seen to be the inner layer. And we have the hypodermis, which is seen to be the innermost layer. Innermost layer. All right. So now this epidermis, being the outer layer, the outermost layer of the skin, is simply made up of three other layers. So what makes up the epidermis of the skin are three layers, because we are about considering looking at the epidermis. So the epidermis is made up of three layers. And what are the three layers? We have the conified layer, which is also called stratum corneum. All right, and then we have granular layer, the granular layer, which is also called stratum granulosum. All right, and then we have the Malpighian layer, Malpighian layer, which is also called stratum germinativum. All right, so these are the three layers that form the epidermis of the skin. And as a matter of fact, for those Nigerians, you can use a code to remembering it: CGM, that is conified, granular, and Malpighian. You can say Church of God Mission. That's actually a code. All right, so now, considering this conified layer, it is made up of dead cells, flat dead cells. All right, and it tends to act as a waterproof material for the skin. All right, so it prevents the entering of foreign bodies or microbes that can actually gain access. So due to the fact that it functions as a waterproof material, it tends to prevent their entrance into the skin. Now, considering the granular layer is made up of living cells. So it tends to elongate to replacing the conified layer when they are damaged or injured. All right. Then for the Malpighian layer, the Malpighian layer of the skin is actually the layer that contains a pigment called melanin. Melanin. And this melanin is simply a dark pigment that is present in the Malpighian layer of the skin, and it tends to regulate skin tone or skin color. Now, this dark pigment called melanin, those extremely dark complexion persons, they have a high concentration of melanin. Then while those that lack melanin, they suffer from a condition which is a genetic disorder called albinism. So one suffering from this disorder is said to be called an albino. Another very important part or point about the Malpighian layer is that the Malpighian layer contains living cells, and the cells can come in the form of melanocytes or it can come in the form of keratinocytes. Now, there are keratins which are considered as hair proteins that are actually found in the Malpighian layer of the skin, and their primary role or duty is to strengthen the hair. All right, so again, Malpighian layer is the layer of the skin where cell division occurs or takes place. So in case you are writing exam and then you are being asked, at what layer of the skin do you have cell division occurring or cytokinesis? It is actually in the Malpighian layer. And that reminds me, the Malpighian layer is different from Malpighian tubules, and it is also different from Malpighian capsule. Please take note of this. We have Malpighian tubules and we have Malpighian capsule. Malpighian tubules are actually the excretory structure of insects. The while that of Malpighian capsule is a constituent of the nephron of the kidney. Because looking at the nephron of the kidney, we have the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule, which is like the starting up part of the nephron. So when you combine the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule, you will actually obtain Malpighian capsule. You get the point now? So please, Malpighian layer is totally different from those two. All right. So considering the dermis of the skin, now the dermis of the skin has different divisions. And what are the different divisions of the dermis of the skin? Now we have the dermis to be made up of, we have the blood vessels, which can come in the form of arteries, veins, capillaries, and then we have hair follicles. Hair follicles, we have the sweat gland, and we have the sebaceous gland. So these are what makes up the dermis of the skin. All right, so we have the blood vessels, which are, like I said, can come in the form of arteries, veins, capillaries, and they are involved in supplying nutrients to the skin. Then the hair follicles, every hair that you find on the surface of your skin come or emanate from hair follicles. So it's like the root of hair is the hair follicles. That's where they originate from. All right. Then for the sweat gland, now the sweat glands, they are actually coiled in shape, just like the shell of a snail. And what's their primary duty? They tend to regulate body temperature. And as a matter of fact, the standard value of normal value of body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. That's the standard value of normal body temperature. So these guys, they tend to regulate body temperature by sweating action. And when you sweat, it tends to evaporate, leading or bringing about cooling effect. All right, so that's their work. Then for the sebaceous gland, it secretes an oily substance called sebum. Sebum. And this sebum, it helps to lubricate hairs and also to bring about good texture of the skin. All right, so that's his work. And if you check, this sebum contains hydrolytic enzyme which is called lysozyme. So it can actually act as a protection to the skin, in that now since it contains that hydrolytic enzyme lysozyme, it tends to function as a kind of enzyme that degrades or destroys foreign bodies that enters into the skin. All right. And there was something I did not make mention of about the sweat gland. Now we have two main divisions of sweat gland. We have the endocrine sweat gland, and we have the apocrine. All right. Now the endocrine is majorly found almost in every part of the body, and while the apocrine is usually found in two regions, specific regions. We have the groin, which is actually the lower part of our abdomen, and the upper part of the thigh. And then we now have the armpit. That's where you find the apocrine sweat gland. All right. So that's all about the dermis. I'm just giving the main things to take cognizance of about these different layers of the skin. Then the last layer is the hypodermis, which is the innermost layer. Now the hypodermis is also called the subcutaneous fatty layer. So meaning, from the name subcutaneous fatty layer, there is something that should be ringing in your head right now, that it is the layer of the skin where excess fats are being stored. And of course, in this layer you have what is called the adipose tissues. When you hear adipose tissues, just know that they are simply tissues that are involved in the storage of excess fats. All right, fun fact. Now, it has been believed that extremely fat persons are better swimmers than slim persons, judging from the fact that fat do not dissolve in water. So what results in enhancing their buoyancy is because of the excess fat that they have in their adipose tissues. That's just like a fun fact. All right. So that's just the concept of the skin. Just always take cognizance of the different layers of the skin in case you are asked in exam. Don't forget the outer layer of the skin, which is the epidermis, is made up of three layers. And what are the three layers? Conified, granular, and mapigian. Then the next layer, being the dermis, is made up of about four. We have the blood vessels, hair follicles, sweat gland, and sebaceous gland. Then now the last layer, which is the hypodermis, is simply known as subcutaneous fatty layer, and it contains adipose tissues which are involved in the storage of excess fats. Alright, so in that kind of thing, I can as well say that the hypodermis of the skin is involved in prevention of heat loss. So they function as heat insulators. Alright, so that's just like the overview of the skin. I believe that in our next video, we should be looking at the other sense organs. All right. Do well. If you enjoyed this video, do well to hit the follow button and inform your friends too, because I believe that the exam is fast approaching now, as those writing JAMB. So invite your friends for them to benefit also from this channel. All right. Stay tuned as more videos are yet to drop.